This one's kind of a double whammy, I suppose, because I found out about one story when reading the other story. I don't know if you remember, we covered previously that I, as a person who lives in Kansas, am going to have my sex change legally, retroactively undone. I legally changed my sex and gender like years ago, and the law in Kansas has recently changed, saying that I don't get to have that anymore. Like when I go get my driver's license renewed, it's going to revert back to what it was when I was born. This is working its way through the courts right now because obviously there's questions as to whether that's acceptable legally under the current definitions. And I was initially reading that there is a district court judge, and I've read about her before, Teresa Watson. Previously, she put in an order preventing the Department of Revenue from changing the listing of sex on trans people's driver's licenses. So while this has been going in through the courts, this judge, Teresa Watson, says, no, it's okay. And now she's put that indefinitely. She initially had this ruling before, and now she's spent more time, I guess, observing the Kansas state constitution because the ACLU is arguing that the no changes policy is violating rights protected by the Kansas constitution because the Supreme Court in Kansas declared in 2019 that our state constitution grants a right to bodily autonomy. That decision dealt with abortion rights. That's why abortion is protected in Kansas because our constitution is supposed to protect that right. So this judge says invoking the bodily autonomy thing to require the state to change driver's licenses would be, quote, an unreasonable stretch. She said that Kansas residents do not have a fundamental right under the state constitution to, quote, control what information is displayed on a state-issued driver's license. She says that information recorded on a driver's license does not interfere with transgender persons' ability to control their own bodies or assert bodily integrity or self-determination. But it does prevent you from getting housing sometimes. It prevents you from having dignity and from having your documentation match your appearance. But whatever, this isn't even the main story today. Basically, we will see if this gets appealed up to the state Supreme Court level. Cool, that's what we're hoping for. We are hoping that the Supreme Court will say, no, this isn't legal, but I'm not sure what is exactly going to happen. Probably, I'm not expecting it to go great, as with most things, but, could be surprised. The Supreme Court in Kansas did decide that abortion is a right guaranteed in our Constitution. However, they also said that our districts were not heavily gerrymandered and said good luck for the next 10 years before they're rewritten again. So, yay, that's great. But again, this is not even my main story tonight, that Kansas put a bathroom law that also retroactively revoked gender marker changes. They're coming after trans youth again. They're coming after trans healthcare for youth again. If you're enjoying this video, hit the like button, maybe subscribe, hit all notifications if you want. Feel free to check out the links in the description. You might find some merch you like, or you can hit up the Patreon to support the content and find free stuff. They tried to do this last year. We have a Democratic governor right now, so she will veto this. Most likely, almost guaranteed, she's going to veto this. But they did have a veto-proof majority for the bathroom bill. They did not have a veto-proof majority for when they tried to pass this same type of bill last year. But we'll see if it happens now. They're just going to keep shoving the same bills out and hope what happens here. So actually, this might be a little bit more messed up than just passing a crappy law. They did things dirty here. I want to be clear on that. They're doing things dirty with this. Kansas House lawmakers advancing a wide-ranging bill Tuesday that includes Republican plans to ban trans children from getting gender-affirming medical care. The bill is part of a wave of anti-trans legislation. 22 other states have similar bans against trans youth getting access to health care. There are LGBTQ representatives in Kansas who are arguing against this, and just Democrats in general who are voting against it. This person says, quote, nobody is grooming children to be gay or trans. Continuing, please, in your rhetoric, remember that trans people are humans as well. Being trans is not an ideology, which has been referenced in this building. Me loving who I am is not a lifestyle. It is who we are. Okay, that was just a gay lawmaker, Brandon Woodard. So this particular ban is aiming to prevent healthcare professionals from using surgery or puberty blockers to treat children when their gender identity doesn't match their sex. It also bans state employees from helping minors to, quote, social transition. such as using a trans child's preferred pronouns. So if you are a state social worker in Kansas, if this law passes, the official guidance is like, you cannot use the correct pronouns for a trans child. So this bill has gained initial approval on the House floor, with final action on the bill expected tomorrow. So, as of today, there were supposed to be more like things happening, but I haven't checked what the newest updates are. This is as of streaming this today. So this legislation was vetoed by Laura Kelly last year. Yeah, we passed. Oh, I almost forgot about the trans student athlete ban that was passed into law here in April last year because of the veto override. Yeah, the Senate Bill 180 is the one that retroactively is taking gender marker changes away, which, again, to be totally clear, you should not be able to retroactively change things based on precedent. Like, if you got married in the brief period of time in California where gay marriage was legal before Proposition 8 got passed, they didn't then nullify your marriage because it's no longer it's no longer legal to do it. So it's really messed up that they're revoking something that we legally changed when it was legal to change it. And they're not going to confiscate our identity documents. Like, if you previously changed your birth certificate, they're not going to take it away from you. But if you ever needed a new one, it's going to be reverted back to what it was when you were born. Yo, that was back a while ago. Yeah. So, Jonathan, before gay marriage was legal across the whole country in America, California passed a law that made gay marriage legal, and a bunch of people got married immediately. And then a voter, like a bunch of Christian organizations pushed for a proposition to pass, and then they made gay marriage illegal for a period of time again, and then it was changed later. So there was a brief period of time where it was legal before it was made illegal again. It was not that long ago, and yeah, it's ex post facto. Like, it's supposed to be, you can't retroactively mess it up. Anyway, of course, these restrictions go against commonly accepted medical practice. This care is supported by all the major medical organizations, Academy of Pediatrics. 97% of trans-identifying youth still identify as trans years and years later. Okay, these people don't care about any of this. So, okay, the author of the bill, Representative Ron Bryce, who is a Coffeyville Republican and a physician registered in Texas, waved aside gender-affirming care practices to push forward the legislation during Tuesday's debate. Quote, no matter what reality says, no matter what their body says, if the child says, I'm this, the affirmative model says we must change reality to meet what's in the child's head. During the initial bill hearings in a House Legislative Committee, trans Kansans told legislators multiple times how damaging the legislation could be for some of the state's most vulnerable residents. Committee Chairwoman Representative Brenda Landwehr of Wichita, Republican, responded by forcing transgender activists out of the hearing, and later held a surprise committee meeting without giving notice to the public to take action on the bill. These meetings are supposed to be public, but they apparently kicked out a bunch of trans Kansans. Like, I didn't even know about this until today, basically too late for me to go to a committee meeting and voice my opinion about it. I do kind of wish that I had known about it, because I would have gone. This is the allegedly democratic process where they kick the trans Kansans, residents of Kansas who are going to be affected by this bill, kick them out of the meeting, and then later holding a different surprise committee meeting without adequate time for the public to be able to respond. This is a different article. There were some House Democrats who questioned the integrity of the Republican legislators brandishing their credentials as physicians while promoting harmful misinformation. These two physicians falsely described being transgender as a transient mental illness and social contagion during debate Thursday. I don't know that there is a video of any of this. I don't know if Kansas has video. I would have to go looking for it. I would definitely have to go looking for it. Representative Susan Ruiz, a Shawnee Democrat and LGBT lawmaker, said that banning medical professionals from providing care was unethical because, of course, trans people are more vulnerable. And she goes on to say, for us to say, well, let's just wait till they grow out of it. Well, let's just hope that they're still alive and see if that even happens. Correctly pointing out that youth are at much greater risk of suicide if they don't have support and access to healthcare. Like, seriously, if you're like, I have previously used like community health centers to get my healthcare. So, and like community mental health centers as well. So if you were getting therapy from a therapist who works essentially for the state because they work at a public community health center, is your therapist not allowed to support your pronouns? And state employees also includes schools. So in this particular law, this is not just a ban on trans youth having access to the medical care that they need. It is also a ban on teachers even using the new name and the new pronouns for the kid. And the one in Missouri that we just covered was way more intense. Like, it was saying that it's a sex crime and you have to go on the sex offender registry if you affirm a transgender student. This one is just banning state employees from helping minors to socially transition. It doesn't say that there's like a crime involved, but it does mean like, yeah, state employees is all public school teachers. And I would have to check. I doubt that there's any exception. Like, we will give an exception to this rule if the parents decide that they want their child to be affirmed. Because if you start banning teachers from even using the correct name and pronouns for these kids, it's a step further than in some states where they're saying you need to ask permission from the parents before you use these different name and pronouns. Like, no, if you just ban it completely, you are taking away the rights of parents who want their children to be affirmed. Like, what, the kid just has to go to private school now if you don't want them to be like, the teachers are actively making their lives worse because they're legally required to. If you're on trial for something, yeah, does the state employee, the judge, and if you have a public attorney, is that person legally required to misgender you? I think so. I think that's how it works. And it would be very funny to see that go through the courts. I mean, it wouldn't be funny, but having just looked at this district court lady who said, there's nothing in the Kansas Constitution that says you're allowed to change your documentation, but are you deserving of basic respect? Like, I don't get it. Yeah, parents' rights was only ever a smokescreen, just like states' rights. Yeah, because it's not about parents' rights, because you're taking away the parents' right to choose how their child is going to be addressed at school. So, yay, we live in Kansas. I hate this. Like, I feel like it's worth it to point out the personal hit that this causes. It's one thing to cover this happening, and it's like, it's my country, and that feels bad on some level, even though I don't really enjoy the concept of countries. I don't feel great about the idea that I'm not welcome here, right? But there are at least places in my country where I would be safe and welcome and accepted. And it is really, 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 really effed up that the state that I was born, where I live, has now made it to where I cannot use a bathroom safely without risking like being accosted, harassed, assaulted, or arrested. And also my documentation is going to be forcibly changed without my permission. And I care very much about trans youth who live in Kansas who, like, thankfully, I think the people that I know are going to be basically old enough to be, like, I think they'll probably be adults by the time this law goes into effect. Because realistically, they've managed to veto override on a couple of different anti-trans laws, which tells me that they probably, even though it's a slim margin, there's a good chance that they're going to be able to pass this one with a veto-proof majority, even though the governor is going to veto it. But a lot of laws don't go into effect immediately, and some of these laws have grandfather clauses in. So it's like, if your kid is already on the healthcare, maybe you'll be all right. But as far as starting new healthcare, what options do you have? Like, I literally was like weeping this afternoon reading about this because it's just so messed up that, like, I'm just trying to exist and my rights are being chipped away at. The first time I really felt that blow was Roe v. Wade, and like the Dobbs decision. But it's like, it's hard to keep taking that hit, that your rights keep getting chipped away at very explicitly, and that a pretty sizable portion of the population seems at least indifferent, if not actively like, yes, this is a good thing. And it hurts, like, on an existential level. And I wish that more people knew how difficult it was. It's one thing for trans people to commiserate amongst ourselves. It's another thing for the cis people in our lives to like reach out and ask if we're okay, or to offer to go call like their representatives on your behalf saying, I don't believe in this. This isn't okay. People are just not informed. Yeah, and when you try to explain things to people who are cis, even when they consider themselves allies, they can be so dismissive, like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. You know, some portion of the population is saying, like, no, your rights are not being chipped away. Like, you don't even have the right to do this. So, you know, it's just so difficult. I never wanted, when I was like 5 years old, I wanted to move away from Kansas because I was being abused by my family and I wanted to be away from them. And I've thought for a long time that I wanted to get away from Kansas. The older I've gotten, like the last 5 years especially, I really appreciate where I'm from a lot more. And I like a lot of things about living here. And it sucks feeling like I have no choice but to move, whether it's because I'm losing my rights or whether it's because like the climate change is going to make this area less and less habitable for people. Like, it's not like I'm excited about the idea that it's not an I get to move to a new state like across the country. It's like I feel like I have to. MLK was right about the white moderate, or in this case, the cis moderate. They just want the negative peace, absence of tension, over the positive peace, presence of justice. Many allies want the cred of being progressive without actually having to hear us complain or for them to have to lift a finger to help us. I genuinely think that there are probably some people who would consider themselves moderate who do genuinely think that the world would just be a better place if the trans people would be quiet and stay in private. Anyway, if you have trans friends and you're cis, reach out to them and see if they're okay. The answer is probably not. So maybe when you message them, have some kind of concrete material idea for how you can help. Like, I don't know, man. Offer to pay for some of their gas. Like, that could make things better for someone. I don't know, man. Much love to my patrons, especially Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rolvog, Michelle Frattaroli, Amanda B., Wellington Marcus, Michelle Winter, Danielle McDonald, DZXN, Suzanne Maynard, Spooky Heather Sylvia, Jamie Jam, Pasnell Infinity, Nova, Sojo, Elizabeth Bartell, Ella V. Nobody, Kevin Young, Sarah A., Athiet, Celeste, Desi Quiche, Liam Hodgson, and Mr. Atheist.